Hey everybody, welcome back to Crease on Point. As you can see, I'm in a bit of a different location right now. I'm in the States for a couple of days, but Wimbledon starts tomorrow, so I thought that I would do a preview of the bracket on both the women's and the men's side, go through kind of my favorite matchups, what to watch, and who I think might go all the way. So stay tuned. Wimbledon draw predictions coming up next. All right, we're gonna start on the women's side. Now, when I was filling out my bracket, I noticed that Iga Swiatek is in the top half, and I think that with the year that she's had, we can all pretty much agree that she might be able to blow through most of the rounds. I do have her making the final, barring any upsets, and I know grass isn't really her strong suit, but we'll see what happens. Just because she makes the final doesn't mean I think she'll win Wimbledon. In fact, my kind of dark horse or slash like hot take is that I think somebody completely random will probably win the tournament, because like usually for Wimbledon it's a time where unless you have players who are really consistent on grass, and grass is a surface that they love, it's a pretty difficult surface to play on, and I think that's when you get the stars that are going to come out and go on a good run, or the underrated players that aren't really stars yet. We've seen this happen in the past before. Elena Rybakina got her big break at Wimbledon. She won it last year. She's a defending champion. She's in the bottom half of the draw. And her and Sabalenka could match up in the semifinals if everybody's feeling good and healthy, because that's another big thing. I know that Iga Swiatek was battling with some sort of stomach bug recently, and I think Rybakina was also sick at one point. So we'll see how they're feeling heading into the tournament. But I think barring any health or upsets, I think we see Iga in the final, and I think either Rybakina or Sabalenka will be in that final as well. All right, so now you've got my favorites who I think will go all the way. Let's talk about some matchups that could potentially be super exciting, particularly in the second round. Danielle Collins versus Belinda Bencic is a potential second round matchup that I think could be really cool, especially on grass. Those are two baseline hitters. I think if they really up their forehands, then it could be a very thrilling matchup. I think both players are probably trying to break through and get some sort of consistency this year after both of them really having good years last year. Danielle Collins making it far at the Australian Open, Belinda Bencic having a really good year, and now it's been kind of quiet to start 2023. I say start, but we're in the middle of 2023, which is kind of wild. But those two I got my eye on to see if maybe one of them could do something big at Wimbledon on grass. Also, I have a gripe with one of the first round matchups, and that is between Venus Williams and Alina Svitolina. Two players who are essentially on their return tour, and they match up against each other in the first round. Are you kidding me? Anyway, it just sucks because like I want both of them to win. Venus, who knows how many years we have left in her career. She's getting older. She just returned back recently on the tour. She got a couple of wins, but Alina Svitolina has started to put together really great matches, and we know she does really well on grass as well. So that's going to be a very interesting one. I think out of all the first round matchups on the women's side, that one is the one that I will definitely be watching, that you should definitely be watching. Those are two really experienced players who play well on grass. Also, I get a lot of questions about what the difference is between all the surfaces in tennis. So now we're in grass season. This is a grass court for Wimbledon, where the French Open was clay and the US and Australian Open have hard courts. The grass courts are really hard to play on. The ball doesn't bounce as high, obviously, because it's literally like you're playing on a carpet. And so players who have really big serves do well, really big forehands. If you're able to move quickly as well, your footwork has to be so important on grass, because you have to get to the ball super quickly before it bounces to the floor. Players who can do that will succeed on grass, and I know it's not every player's favorite surface, but yeah, I get a lot of questions about the difference. I just wanted to add that. Okay, last thing on the women's side, let's talk about the Americans and the Canadians, because I went on a podcast last week on Beyond the Arc, shout out Brandon Silvers, and we were kind of talking about where the Americans are at right now in terms of tennis. And as I was kind of talking about like Coco Gauff and Jessica Pegula and all of those other ones, it kind of made me realize that the Canadians are low-key in the same position. Lots of potential. We've seen flashes of success. We know that they can go super far in tournaments, but it's just a matter of getting that consistency back. And with Coco Gauff, she did really well in a couple of these warm-up grass tournaments, and she's been phenomenal in doubles, but and did really well at the French Open, but has previously struggled a little bit in singles earlier this year. Jessica Pegula also trying to get a little bit more matches under her belt. She could be super dangerous. I have Pegula actually as my dark horse pick that could potentially make a run to the final if she catches fire and starts playing really, really well. And then on the Canadian side, we have a couple of Canadians, but the main two are Bianca Andreescu and Leylah Fernandez. And I'll be interested to see how both of them play. Bianca can definitely, they can both play pretty well on grass. They've both been struggling a little bit, but Leylah has been doing super well in doubles, so I'm hoping some of that translates over to singles. And then Bianca, also waiting for her because she's been playing pretty well this year. It's just a matter of getting tough matchups and all that. But yeah, we'll see how the Americans and the Canadians do on the women's side, but obviously going to be rooting for them. Okay, let's move on to the men's side of the draw. Now, I think when it comes to power rankings, and you guys can go to my Patreon to check out where I ranked all the favorites heading into the tournament, I don't think it changes too much. I still have Novak Djokovic as my top favorite to win Wimbledon. He's playing amazing tennis this year, won both of the Grand Slams so far, and I think his ability to adapt to every single service and his experience places him ahead of every other player at this tournament. So Novak Djokovic is definitely my favorite to win Wimbledon. He is the defending champion as well, so that already puts him at an advantage. And then in my second for power rankings, I do have Carlos Alcaraz. The teenager has been exceptional in the last year and a half, and I think he could be the one that could go up against Novak. They did face each other in the semifinals at the French Open. That didn't go Carlos's way. He was cramping. It wasn't really the full match that we were expecting. So hopefully going to get some kind of rematch at Wimbledon. They are not in the same half of the draw, which means they could potentially meet in the final, and that would be super, super exciting. Some other guys that are in the men's draw in the first half, you have Francis Tiafoe in there, who I had as my dark horse pick. He just won in Stuttgart, and he just made the top 10 in the ATP rankings, which is huge for him and his development in his career. So hopefully he can do something. He's got a very unique forehand. I love watching him. Daniil Medvedev, Canadian Milos Raonic is also making his return to tennis, which was very cool to see. He's in the top half of the draw. And Andy Murray, who also received the wild card, another vet that I'm super excited to watch at Wimbledon. He can do well on grass too. He just won a warm-up tournament as well. So don't count any of these guys out, although Novak and Carlos are clearly a tier above everybody else. I still think there are a lot of players that could do some serious damage at Wimbledon. And then the bottom half of the draw is super interesting as well, which is full of these players that could do some kind of run. Whether you have Yannick Sinner, Denis Shapovalov, who has done well at Wimbledon previously in the past, Casper Ruud, who just made the French Open final, Andrei Rublev, Nick Kyrgios, if he's healthy, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Stan Wawrinka, and of course Novak is in that bottom half of the draw. So we'll see what goes on. We'll see what happens. I think it'll be a really exciting time. The tournament does start tomorrow. Matches start at 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, so it is a little bit early, but you get morning and day tennis. And what's better than that? Well, I guess tennis, that's like in your time zone, but overall, it's not a bad time zone, especially if you compare the Australian Open. People who wake up at 3 a.m. know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, those are kind of my players to watch, the names that if you want to start getting into tennis, you want to pay attention to them, go watch their matches. And I think if you're in the US, you can probably watch it on the tennis channel. I'm not sure if like ESPN or any of these other channels will be broadcasting Wimbledon, but in Canada, you can watch the matches on TSN. All right, thanks for sticking around. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell me who you are most excited to watch at Wimbledon. Coming up, I will be going to Europe in a week, and so I will be in the same time zone as Wimbledon. So hopefully I can continue to bring you guys coverage of the tournament in the same time zone, which will be nice. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching Crina on Point.